Hello everybody, my name is Rainer and this is Rainier Books. Today another review of a book that was longlisted for the Women's Prize in 2023 and that did not make the shortlist. I'm talking about Wandering Souls by Cecile Powell. A very short, a very small book, about 200 pages. This is a novel about grief, immigration and survival. It is a novel about a family brutally torn apart by historical events. It begins in 1978, 1979, during the refugee crisis that is connected to the term Vietnamese boat people. After the United States withdrew from Vietnam, and lost actually against the small nation of Vietnam, the big superpower America lost this war and withdrew because they couldn't win the war. The communist regime of northern Vietnam moved easily down south and started occupying all the territories that were held by the South Vietnamese and the Americans. And the communists, they reigned over the whole country. Hundreds of thousands of people who had worked, who had collaborated with the administration, with the government of South Vietnam, with the Americans, but also teachers, people who in the public service, they had to flee, they were persecuted, and a lot of them fled the country. Wandering Souls is Cecile Powell's first novel. She grew up in Paris and New York, then she studied philosophy at University College in London. She has worked in the publishing field, and she's also an author for the website Bad Form Review, a website founded in 2019 by Amy Mae Baxter to platform writers of color. On this website, Bad Form Review states that in 2016, less than 100 books by British BAME authors, that is Black, Asian, and minority ethnic authors, were published in the United Kingdom. And something that Bad Form Review wants to change, wants to fix, because the representation of BAME authors in Britain is not good. So if you're interested in authors of BAME, of the BAME spectrum, from Black, Asian, minority ethnic authors, then visit the website of Bad Form Review, because there's a lot of inspiration to get there, a lot of new names to be found, a lot of books that have been published that are interesting. There are also reviews and discussions, and this is a beautiful website to go to. And I found it thanks to the book and thanks to the little research I did around Cecile Powell. But back to the book, Wandering Souls. Back to the Vietnamese boat people. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees estimates that around 800,000 people left Vietnam from the end of the 1970s until the year of 2000, and that they found their home in other countries. And now comes the very sad figure. The UNHCR also estimates that as many as between 200 and 400,000 people died at sea. Either they drowned, since most of them were traveling in way too small boats in the South China Sea, or they were killed by pirates, predators who roamed the South China Sea for human prey. Wandering Souls is a story told by a young woman named An. At the time of the boat people crisis, a young teenage girl. She's like 14 or 15 years old. She left Vietnam with her parents and her 6 siblings. At sea, pirates are threatening them, and finally there's a storm, and only Anne and 2 of her siblings, smaller siblings, make it to Hong Kong, where they end up in the very infamous Kai Tak refugee camp. The UNHCR will decide about Anne and her brother's fate, where they will go after this. When applying for coming to the United States, Anne does not mention, she's asked, have you any relatives in the United States? So Anne is not mentioning that her uncle, the brother of her father, is actually already living in New Jersey, because she doesn't mention him at the moment, a very spontaneous decision, because she blames her uncle for having sort of convinced her father to flee from Vietnam, and ultimately for the father's, the mother's, and 4 siblings' death. And that's why she says, no, I have no relatives in the US, which will actually lead to the fact that their application for coming to the United States will be denied, and they have to go to the United Kingdom. They come to the UK. and to another refugee camp where they have to live for months, and I think for a period of almost 2 years. Pin describes how Anne, as a young teenager, has to become an adult overnight in order to take care of her younger brothers. At the same time, she's absolutely overwhelmed with grief for her parents and her siblings who died at sea. She has to navigate the future of her family by negotiating and organizing, though not knowing much about the world. The narration sometimes moves back to the horrible experience they had in the South China Sea, the incident when they met teenage pirates eye to eye, the tremendous fear and the helplessness that they were in. Another voice of the book comes from Anne's younger brother who died at sea. He's watching the earth, he's watching his siblings, how they go on with their lives, and he's sort of watching himself in his non-existent existence. And the book has even another voice, which seems to be the author, a younger woman who is looking at this, who's giving us facts from time to time in between the narrative of Anne's life and of other things that have happened. We get information about PGD, for example, which is called prolonged grief disorder, and which is a recognized illness, mental illness that people get who are grieving for their loved ones longer than 4 months. This is we get information about a phony letter from then Prime Minister of the UK, Margaret Thatcher, who is welcoming all the refugees from Vietnam. At the same time, it is revealed that later on, Thatcher said something in private which was revealed to the public, that she actually did not want any refugees of color in the UK, but she wanted only white refugees, and that's what she actually has said. Anne has to be an adult while she is a child. She's exposed to daily racism in the United States due to her looks, her eyes, the way she speaks, and the way she looks. There are similarities between the author Cecile Powell'S background and the story of Wandering Souls. But the narrator in the book is not Cecile Powell, it is Anne's daughter. This is a short novel, about 200 pages, but it contains so many voices and so many topics and historical events. It is a very timely novel, I think, as well. It's not a historical novel. It's a timely novel, a memoir of souls, but it's also an homage to a mother who was robbed of her family members, a mother who was robbed of her childhood, but survived and did all she could for giving her little brothers and then her own family a future. It is a story that repeats itself each and every day. Then it were Vietnamese boat people. Today we have refugees from El Salvador and Honduras trying desperately to get into the United States to find a better life. We have families from Syria and Iraq coming to Europe, siblings from the Gambia or Niger crossing the dangerous desert, the Sahara, to get to Libya, where it is very dangerous, to get on boats that take them over the Mediterranean to Italy or Spain. It is a story about girls and mothers, and handled with such elegance and beauty and empathy by the author, and therefore very much deserving its spot on the long list of the Women's Prize of 2023. And it's interesting, I think, that thinking about this novel, doing a little research of this novel after I finished it, makes the novel gets even better, for me at least, and stronger. And I really wish it would have made the shortlist. And it's homage to a mother. It actually also reminds me a little bit of Dominicana by Angie Cruz, where Angie Cruz describes the life of a very young woman coming from the Dominican Republic to New York in the 1960s and building a life there. Wandering Souls is beautiful and highly recommendable. See you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.